Hello everybody and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today is Wednesday, March 31st, which means that there is a new release on a Wednesday, which is not the only time this is happening. There is a new release coming out in a couple weeks on a Thursday, and in December there's 3 blockbuster movies coming out on a Wednesday. So Wednesdays will occasionally be very busy for me, so hopefully you guys take the time out of your day to check out my videos. They're a lot of fun in my opinion. I have a lot of fun talking about movies. And this is the 4th entry into the Monsterverse, and it may be the last, depending on if there's a sequel to this one, which we'll discuss that later on. But let's just go ahead and jump right into talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. Godzilla vs. Kong was released in 2021. It was written by Eric Pearson and Mac Borenstein and directed by Adam Wingard. So, this is a non-spoiler review. There might be like a small spoiler, but it was a spoiler for me when I watched the movie. It wasn't spoiled, but like I didn't know what was happening. But apparently, if you watch the trailers, it's in the trailers somewhere. I've only seen like one trailer for this movie, so it's possible I missed it, but I didn't see it there. But essentially, what happens in this movie is we follow Godzilla, King of the Monsters, as well as the original Godzilla movie from 2014, and Kong Skull Island, which is the first time this movie was actually teased. And basically what happens is, according to the trailer, we see Godzilla and we see Kong, and they're going to battle it out because they don't like each other, and they want only one Titan to exist. Which, for the most part, yes, that is the idea of the film. But there's also a lot of interesting back stuff that I wasn't looking forward to. Like, I didn't think they were going to do it, and they did, and I think it worked out really well for them. And then, of course, the introduction of, this might be a slight spoiler. I didn't know this was happening, but apparently many people did. But, so, slight spoiler warning. Mecha Godzilla shows up, and then he becomes a target, which, if you remember from my previous videos, I did mention this would probably happen. I was like, there's no way that either Godzilla or Kong is going to have to, like, just fight each other the whole movie. That doesn't make sense. Like, somebody else who's bigger and badder is going to show up, and they're going to have to divert both their attentions towards that. It's a classic versus movie. It's the same thing with, like, Batman v Superman. So it's like, it was expected, but I didn't think it was going to be Mecha Godzilla. But essentially, we have 2 sets of characters here. We have the characters that are going into the Hollowed Earth, and then we have the characters that are going into the Apex company and trying to figure out what's going on there. So let's talk about both of them a little bit. So first, we have the people that are going into Hollowed Earth. So there's this theory that there's a Hollow Earth, and that in there, that's where all of the Apex Predators and stuff come from, all the Titans. And so their goal is to go there, figure out what's powering them, and then one person's goal is to take that and bring it back so they can replicate it. Everybody else is just curious, essentially. And they're trying to find a way to make it so that Godzilla and Kong can actually fight and, like, have one win, because they don't want them to fight forever and destroy the Earth, like they would probably do if they had to fight the whole time. So they do that, and I'm not going to go into it too deep because I don't want to spoil anything, but they do find the Hollowed Earth, and they, figure out what's going on and all that stuff. And then no spoilers after that. It's interesting how they did that so well, because this doesn't feel like a thing that they would do very well. They've never had a very good track record with interesting characters and interesting human developments. For instance, the first Godzilla movie was great. I actually really liked it a lot. A lot of people didn't. I actually really enjoyed it, especially considering all the human elements that worked really well for them, which is in direct comparison to the second Godzilla movie, which in my opinion was a mess. It was a mess of just like, we need all the special effects, go! And it just didn't work for them because they had no human interest. Kong was in the middle. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was kind of okay. It helped that we had Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson there, so that was nice. Still not perfect. And this I think definitely had the best of both worlds here, particularly with these characters. With their other set of characters, they're going into Apex because they want to figure out what is going on, because they realize that there's no reason that Godzilla would just freak out for no reason. So they're the ones that go in and they try to figure out what's going on, and they discover Mecha Godzilla and all that stuff, which is really cool. No more spoilers after that point, which I don't even think those were technically spoilers because all that's in the trailer. But yeah, it honestly went really well. The special effects are amazing. Like, they truly, truly are. Uh, it's a spectacle. It really is. It's similar to like if you watched Titanic when it came out. Like you were like, wow, that's really cool how they were able to just make this boat and stuff. This is just on that same level where like, wow, they really made these characters and they made them so real looking. I mean, like looking at Godzilla and his scaly skin and all of it's moving and like, oh, that's cool. And King Kong looks as real as ever because if you look back to like the 2005 King Kong with the one with Jack Black, Kong does not look very good at all. And so this is the first one where I'm like, wow, that's really good looking. And like he looked okay in Kong Skull Island, but like now he looks even better. It really is quite good. Which the spectacle will draw you there, right? You're gonna watch Godzilla vs Kong because you want those kind of special effects. You're interested in those giant monster fights. But what's going to keep you watching Kong is going to be the characters. Really, it's human characters that really drive the plot here. There's not really a whole lot of monster fight. There's a little bit like here and there, and then there's a couple big ones, but like for the most part, we're with the humans trying to figure out what exactly is going on, which is why Godzilla worked, right? We had these awesome fights with Godzilla in the Godzilla movie, but the reason we kept watching it was because we were interested in, you know, Scarlett Johansson's husband or whatever, and like trying to figure out if he's gonna live. Was it Aaron Taylor Johnson? And so you're like, I want him to live. I care a lot about him. I don't really care about Godzilla, but then you watch him fight and you're like, oh, that's really cool. So it's really interesting how you can balance those two, and it went really, really well for them. I'm really happy about it. Let's see what else I have to talk about. The negatives of this movie. There's a few. Firstly, I do want to bring up the pacing. The beginning of this movie is really slow. They open with a really cool scene from Skull Island that I honestly really liked because then there's a little bit of twist at the end of the scene that I'm not going to spoil for you guys, but it was a really cool twist. And I was like, ooh, wow, they're like being smart about what they're doing here, which was really nice. But then the rest of the beginning of the movie was really quite slow. There's slight character development, which is good. It's helpful, but there isn't enough to like make it be a thing, right? Like if you're gonna have the first hour of your movie be so long, at least try to make it somewhat more interesting. Like I get that it was setting up the fact that they had to move Kong and stuff, and that was great. I agree that it was important, but like make it a little faster. Maybe show a little bit more Kong, show a little bit more Godzilla planning because you can show him in the water and like build up some kind of tension. Because the first hour. It's probably not the first hour. It's probably more like the first half hour. But it felt like the first hour. You're sitting there and you're like, wow, haven't really seen a lot of anything recently, and we understand the plot of the movie already. So I don't know if we necessarily needed it. It's not a huge negative, but it is a little bit of negative. A little bit more negatives. I didn't really like all of the acting. I think a lot of it was good, but I think some of it was kind of subpar. Especially when we had so many really interesting characters. And also the comedy in this film. I want to talk about that for a second. One group of our characters is more comedic than the other, which is what they planned because they wanted to have a comedic relief section, right? Which is great. I agree. Most movies do need some kind of comic relief. And this, I don't know if we needed one in this. I think I would have been okay with just a straight, like, oh, disaster movie. But then we had these group of characters that were honestly just kind of funny for no reason. And, like, not to say that the comedy wasn't funny, because it was. It was very funny, in my opinion. I just don't know if we necessarily needed it. So I do wonder if it would have been better if we didn't have the comedy at all. Again, I do want to make sure you know, like, the comedy is funny. Like, the comedic characters we have in here are really great, but I don't know if we needed it. Let's talk about the acting briefly. First, Alexander Skarsgård as Nathan Lind. So he's like a professor or whatever. He's like a doctor, and he is one of the people in the group that's going to go to Hollow Earth. And honestly, I'm not impressed with the performance. Not that I think the performance is necessarily bad, but it wasn't very good either. So I don't know why the choice was that. I mean, especially when you can just choose Bill Skarsgård and make it a little bit better. I don't think he's as good as his brother in general. And it just felt like a very generic casting. They're like, all right, we need a white person who has like a slight stubble beard. And it's like, that's half the people on the planet. So I am interested as to why they chose him. I don't think he was very good. He also didn't have a whole lot of screen time, so I can't really blame him. There's not a whole lot of backstory for him, so I get it. I do. Rebecca Hall as Eileen Andrews. So she's like another doctor who's in charge of a child. basically. And she's interested in King Kong and figuring out why exactly King Kong's doing what he's doing. And I liked her. I liked her a lot. I don't think she was very good, but I liked her. You know, it's an interesting balance that, like, I was like, hey, I like watching her, and I like what she's doing, but she's not very good. Which I don't really know how that works, but it does. Like just watch the movie and you'll understand. You'll be like, wow, not the greatest performance, but, like, also intriguing. I think it's just because her character was the most fleshed out in the movie. Kaylee Huttle as Gia. So she is the child, and she speaks sign language, and she's the only one that can communicate to Kong because she speaks sign language. Which the mother also speaks sign language, so I don't really know why we had to, whatever. I think that she was really good. She didn't have any lines, of course, so she only spoke sign language. But I liked that she was very emotional when she was talking to Kong, and I was able to understand what she was saying really without having to read the subtitles, which is nice. Although there are subtitles for her sign language. Millie Bobby Brown as Madison Russell. So we bring her back from the Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, which is fine, I guess. She's Millie Bobby Brown, it's fine. She didn't have almost any character development at all. She was just the same as before. Not really mourning over her mother, which I thought was interesting. I felt like we would have a little bit more of that. It was fine. Brian Tyree Henry as Bernie Hayes. He was hilarious. He's the big comedic endpoint here, and he is a podcast runner, and he talks about the Apex Predators and stuff and the Titans, and he's helping the other two get into Apex and discover Mechagodzilla. Which he was great. I really enjoyed him. I think he was funny. I don't know if we needed the character, but I think it was fun. I know we needed a podcast runner because that made more sense, but I don't know if we necessarily needed him to be funny. However, I do appreciate his jokes. They're very good, and he landed them very well, and I think he would definitely succeed in a comedic movie. And Julian Dennison as Josh Valentine. I've seen him in Deadpool 2 and in the Christmas Chronicles. He's great. He's funny. It really felt like a waste, though, because we had him and he was basically just playing his other characters. It didn't work very well for me. I think that maybe casting somebody else would have been good if you're going for a comedic role there. But he was fine. I can't really complain because it's what I expect from him. But I was hoping we would have somebody who would kind of defy the expectations. I was hoping maybe he could be in more of a serious role. But that's okay. Again, he wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I was thinking he was going to be. But that's going to do it for me talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. Again, it's a good movie. It really is. It's fun. It's entertaining. There's some slow parts. There's comedy that I don't think needs to be there. But if you're going for spectacle and some really interesting characters, this is definitely a movie for you. And it's fun. It's on HBO Max, free to subscribers, and it's in theaters. So if you guys want to, go ahead and check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and give Godzilla vs. Kong an A-. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys want to check out my other videos, and please consider subscribing. That'd be a huge help. I'm growing the channel slowly. We're getting places. It's really fun. I'm having a great time watching movies and talking about them with you. I'm going to film a bunch of videos today, so make sure you guys are subscribing because they're coming out every single day of the week now. We're going 7 days a week, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope you guys tag along for the ride. But thank you guys so much, and as always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.